The first time Sarah met Kyle's mother, Eleanor, was during a crisp autumn weekend. Sarah had been dating Kyle for 6 months, long enough to know his quirks, but not quite long enough to meet his family. When the invitation came, Kyle was uncharacteristically hesitant. "She's a bit intense," Kyle said, "but she means well. She's just really into, spiritual stuff." Sarah had laughed it off at the time. How bad could it be? Sarah joked Kyle was the kind of boyfriend who made her laugh when she needed it most. He had an easy charm, a crooked smile, and a knack for diffusing tension with self-deprecating humor. His avoidance of deep conversations about his past hadn't been a red flag yet, but as they drove toward his family's home, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that he was holding something back. When they arrived, the house took her breath away. A sprawling Victorian mansion loomed against the backdrop of dense woods, its turreted roof and ornate gables almost Gothic in appearance. Eleanor greeted them at the door, her energy practically radiating off her. "Welcome, Sarah," Eleanor said. "You're lovely. I see why Kyle chose you." At dinner, Sarah met Kyle's younger sister, Lily, a quiet teenager who barely spoke, her eyes darting nervously to Eleanor with every word she managed to utter. Eleanor dominated the conversation, weaving stories about her philosophy of spiritual alignment and the power of energy healing. "You should join us for one of my retreats. It's transformative," she said. Sarah hesitated, glancing at Kyle for help, but he was nodding enthusiastically. "You'll love it," he said. "Sure," Sarah replied. The retreat wasn't what Sarah expected. They arrived at a secluded commune deep in the forest, surrounded by a tall, chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. The gate clanged shut behind them, and Sarah felt a pang of unease. The people there were unsettling. Dressed in flowing white robes, they moved with eerie synchronicity, smiling serenely at Sarah as if she were an old friend. Eleanor led the group like a queen, her voice commanding but melodic. The followers called her mother and hung on her every word. She led them in chants and rituals, her speeches laced with phrases like purging impurities and ascending to the light. At first, Sarah tried to participate, telling herself it was harmless. But the rituals grew stranger. One night, Eleanor had the group drink a bitter herbal concoction she called the elixir of truth. It made Sarah feel lightheaded and disconnected, as though the ground beneath her had shifted. When Sarah woke in the middle of the night, Kyle wasn't in their shared cabin. She slipped outside to search for him and stumbled upon the main hall. The door was ajar, and inside she found Eleanor and a small group of followers in a heated discussion. "We need more time," a man was heard saying. "There is no time," Eleanor snapped. "The ascension is near. We must be ready." Sarah's gaze shifted to the room's contents. Shelves stocked with canned food, medical supplies, and gas masks. She backed away before they could see her, her heart pounding. The next morning, Sarah confronted Kyle. "What is this place, Kyle?" Sarah asked. "Your mother isn't running a retreat. This is a cult." "It's not like that," he insisted. "Mother is trying to protect us. The world is broken, Sarah. She's found the way to save us." Sarah tried to argue, but Kyle's faith in Eleanor was unshakable. The purification ceremony was the breaking point. Eleanor gathered everyone in the main hall, her voice rising with fervor. "The time has come," she declared. "We must prepare for the great ascension." Sarah sat near the back, her unease growing as the followers began to chant. Eleanor held up a vial of clear liquid, calling it the final elixir. "This will cleanse us of all earthly impurities. Drink and be free," she said. Sarah's stomach turned. This wasn't a metaphorical ritual. This was poison. Eleanor began passing the vial to her followers, who drank without hesitation. When she reached Sarah, Sarah stood abruptly. "Stop this," Sarah cried out. "This isn't purification, it's suicide." The room fell silent. Eleanor's serene expression hardened. "You're not ready to ascend," she coldly said. Sarah turned to Kyle, pleading. "Kyle, please, don't do this." But Kyle's eyes were glazed over, his face eerily calm. "It's the only way," Kyle said. In a desperate move, Sarah lunged for the vial, knocking it from Eleanor's hands. It shattered on the ground, sending gasps through the room. Eleanor's composure cracked, her voice sharp and commanding. "Seize her!" Sarah ran, weaving through the stunned crowd. She burst out of the hall and into the woods, the sound of Eleanor's followers close behind. Branches tore at her skin as she stumbled through the dense forest, her heart pounding. She tripped and fell, scraping her palms, but she didn't stop. She found a shack near the commune's edge, its door slightly ajar. Inside, she discovered a radio. Hands trembling, she managed to call for help, her voice cracking with desperation. To her relief, a voice crackled back, promising assistance. But before she could leave, Kyle appeared in the doorway. "Sarah," he said, "don't do this. Mother will forgive you if you come back." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "Kyle, this isn't love. It's control. Your mother is manipulating you," she cried out. For a moment, Kyle hesitated, his face twisted with conflict, as though a part of him knew she was right. Then Eleanor's voice rang out in the distance, calling for him. Kyle stepped aside, his expression unreadable, and let Sarah pass. Sarah ran until she reached the main road, gasping for air, her legs trembling beneath her. Just as she thought she would collapse, she saw the flashing red and blue lights of a patrol car coming toward her. She stumbled into the road, waving her arms frantically, and the car screeched to a halt. The officer stepped out, alarmed at her disheveled state. "Are you hurt?" the officer asked. "No, but you have to come with me," she cried. "There's a cult. Dangerous people. They're in the woods." The officer called for backup, and Sarah led them back to the spot where the retreat had been. Relief surged through her as she imagined the commune finally being exposed, Eleanor's web of lies unraveling. But when they arrived, the commune was gone. The clearing where the main hall had stood was empty, save for flattened grass and a few scattered footprints. The cabins had vanished. Even the chain-link fence seemed to have been taken down. "This isn't possible." "It was here," Sarah said in disbelief. "There were people, I swear." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. "We'll investigate. For now, let's get you somewhere safe." As they drove her back to town, Sarah's mind raced. Had she hallucinated the entire thing? Was the herbal concoction to blame? Or had Eleanor and her followers somehow dismantled everything in the short time it took her to escape? When Sarah returned to her apartment, the events of the weekend felt like a fever dream. But as she prepared for bed, she noticed something that sent a chill down her spine. On her nightstand sat a small glass vial, identical to the one Eleanor had held during the ceremony. Next to it was a note written in elegant handwriting. Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, clutching the vial, unsure if she would ever truly escape Eleanor's grasp.